The man who invented the 401k now calls it a monster. That's not me saying it. That's Ted Benna, the father of the 401k, in 2011, on record, telling reporters his creation should be blown up. Here's what they don't tell you. In 1980, 38% of American workers had guaranteed pensions. Income for life, no market risk, no guessing. Today, 11%. The 401k was never designed to replace pensions. It started as a tax loophole for executives, a quirk in the tax code, an accident. And here's the part that should make you angry. In the 1990s, corporate pension funds weren't failing. They were overfunded by $250 billion. That's billion with a B. So what happened to all that money? It didn't disappear, it transferred. From corporations who didn't want the risk to workers who didn't understand they were taking it. And if you think this is new, if you think this is some modern financial invention, you're wrong. This exact pattern has been running for 2,000 years. Every generation believes their economic system is permanent, stable, designed to protect them. But here's the lesson. History keeps teaching. When institutions need to reduce their obligations, they find ways to transfer risk to individuals and call it freedom. The Romans did it. The English did it. America did it after the Civil War. The mechanism is always the same. Voluntary at first, binding later. And by the time you realize the trap, leaving is expensive. The word for this is risk transfer. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. But to understand how deep this goes, we have to start where it always starts, with Rome. In the 3rd century, Rome had a labor system that worked. Free tenant farmers, called colony, rented land from wealthy landowners. They paid in money or crops. They could leave whenever they wanted. It was a choice, a good arrangement. The empire's food supply depended on them. Sound familiar? A voluntary system, flexibility, freedom. Then came the tax reform. Emperor Diocletian needed money. His reforms in 284 AD assessed taxes based on 2 things: the land and the people working it. Simple enough. Administrative convenience. But here's the trap. Once you were counted on the land, the government expected you to stay. If you left, the landowner still owed your taxes. And landlords don't like paying taxes for workers who aren't there. So in 332 AD, Constantine made it law. Farmers were formally bound to the soil. According to Britannica, not some conspiracy blog Britannica, by AD 332, landlords were permitted to chain colonies suspected of planning to leave. Chain them. The legal term was adscripticae glebae, registered to the soil. What started as free tenancy became legal bondage in less than 50 years. Not slavery. Technically, they were still free, but they couldn't leave, couldn't sue their landlord, and their children inherited the obligation. The chains weren't metaphorical, they were iron. But here's what's chilling. The modern version doesn't need iron. Tax incentives that lock your money in specific accounts, penalties for early withdrawal, complexity that makes transferring expensive. The chains are financial now, but the mechanism, identical. And Rome wasn't alone. 14 centuries later, the English did something even more brazen. For centuries, English peasants had something called common rights, access to shared lands for grazing, firewood, gathering food. These weren't luxuries. They were the safety net. When crops failed, the commons kept you alive. Nobody owned the commons. Everybody used them. Then came the efficiency argument. And this is where it gets ugly. Starting in 1750, wealthy landowners went to Parliament with a proposal. Let us enclose the common lands. We'll farm them more productively. Everyone benefits. Parliament agreed. Over the next century, they passed more than 4,000 enclosure acts. The result? According to UK Parliament's own official history, 2,100 enclosure bills, 6.8 million acres, 1/5 of England, transferred from common use to private ownership. Peasants received compensation. Small plots, usually the worst land, rarely enough to survive on. The commons, centuries of accumulated security, gone in 2 generations. The peasants who lost their land? They became the factory workers of the Industrial Revolution. No safety net, just wages. Replace common lands with pension plans. Replace enclosed plots with 401k accounts. Same pattern, same beneficiaries, same losers. And if you think that's just kings and peasants, ancient history, let me show you what happened in America after the Civil War to people who were promised freedom. 1865. Slavery ends. 4 million people are suddenly free but own nothing. No land, no tools, no capital. Landowners offer a deal. Work my land, I'll provide supplies. At harvest, you keep a share of the crop. Save enough, buy your own land someday. This was sold as the path to ownership, independence, the American dream. Sound familiar? Take control of your retirement, build wealth over time, freedom. But the plantation store sold everything sharecroppers needed on credit at marked up prices. with interest. And come harvest, the landowner calculated what you owed versus what you earned. The math rarely worked in your favor. Here's the mechanism that sealed the trap: crop lien laws. If you were in debt, leaving was illegal. Your debt followed you, and debt was nearly impossible to escape when the person you owed also controlled the books. The system lasted almost a century. Generations worked without building wealth. PBS documented it as slavery by another name. The chains were economic. The bondage was real. Same pattern, different century. Complex fees that reduce your gains. Information asymmetry favoring institutions. Penalties for leaving early. And when outcomes fail, who gets blamed? Not the system. You, your choices, your failure to save enough. But here's where it gets personal, because the newest version of this trap isn't history. It's your retirement account. Let's look at the numbers nobody wants you to see. In 1980, 38% of workers had defined benefit pensions, guaranteed income for life. By 2008, 20%. Today, 11% in private industry. What replaced them? A system its own inventor calls a monster. And the fees? They're worse than you think. A 2012 study estimated the median two-earner household loses $155,000 to 401k fees over a lifetime. Nearly one-third of their returns gone. The investment industry disputes the methodology. Of course they do. But here's what nobody disputes. 71% of workers don't even know they pay fees. The money just disappears. And the savings crisis? The median 401k balance for workers aged 55 to 64, $38,000. Financial advisors say you need 10 to 12 times your salary by retirement. For a median earner, that's over $500,000. The math doesn't work. It was never designed to work. For you. Ellen Schultz's investigation found that 1990s corporate pensions were overfunded by $250 billion. Companies didn't eliminate pensions because they couldn't afford them. They eliminated them because they wanted the money. That's not failure. That's transfer. So what's the pattern? After 2,000 years, Rome, England, America, your 401k, is there a common thread? Yes, 7 steps. Every time. 1, voluntary beginnings. The arrangement starts as a genuine choice. 2, crisis narrative. The old system is suddenly unsustainable. 3, risk transfer. Responsibility shifts from institution to individual. 4, intermediary extraction. New parties emerge to manage the arrangement and take a cut. Here's where it locks in. 5, legal formalization. Laws make leaving expensive. 6, complexity obscures. The system becomes too complicated to understand. That's not a bug. 7, individual blame. When outcomes fail, it's your fault. This isn't conspiracy, it's convergent incentives. Institutions discover the same tricks because they work. So what survives? Across every one of these collapses, what protected people? 4 things, every time. Tangible assets over paper promises. Colony who owned even small plots fared better. Sharecroppers who saved cash escaped. Transferable skills. When systems collapse, portable abilities matter more than institutional positions. Low counterparty risk. The trap works through dependence. Survivors minimized how much their success required someone else's goodwill. And pattern recognition. The trap works because people don't see it coming. It's different this time. It's never different. The man who invented the 401k thinks it's a monster. That's not conspiracy. That's him, on record. You didn't fail. The system wasn't designed to protect you. It was designed to transfer risk from corporations who didn't want it to individuals who didn't understand they were taking it. But you understand it now. The Roman coloni didn't see the chains coming. The English peasants trusted Parliament. The sharecroppers signed the contracts. You don't have to repeat their mistakes. Knowing the pattern is the first form of protection. If you want to see how these patterns play out across history and what's coming next, subscribe. I'll show you what they don't teach in finance class.